Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is our first episode of 2025, so just want to say Happy New Year to all of you Bucs fans and Pewter people. Hope you guys had a great time enjoying ringing in the new year. We're very excited to talk even more about your favorite team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as we preview their game against the Saints, which has very high stakes. Win, and they're in. If they beat the Saints at home at Raymond James Stadium, they will be the NFC South champions and punch their ticket into the postseason, have a guaranteed home playoff game for the first round, and might even get that third overall seed, which would set them up a little bit better with the playoff positioning. But we'll break that all down and give the latest from the Bucs facility on today's show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow colleague, my fellow co-host of this show, Adam Slavon. Adam, Happy New Year to you. You got a haircut this week, it looked like, and it's looking good. So how you doing?
Matt, I'm doing great. And also shout out to all the Pewter people out there tuning in for our first show of 2025. And Matt, I will say the obvious here that this is going to be our best show of the year. And I do want to reflect a little bit on last year and just the Pewter people and how awesome you guys have been supporting us, helping our channel grow, and really giving us a platform to share news about your favorite team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So excited for another year of growth. I think this is going to be our best year yet. So it was an exciting day at the facility today. A lot of news to share. And Matt, can you already believe this is the last week of the regular season? Like months of build up. We're in the off season. Like, oh, we're getting ready for training camp. We're getting ready for the preseason. Now we're the last week and there's a lot on the line.
For sure. Very well said, Adam. And yes, very similar and the sentiment with just great appreciation for all the Pewter people. So we'll keep it rock and rolling in 2025. And with this last week of the season. And it's very funny because there are times where I'm like, oh, yeah, training camp was just yesterday. I still remember Baker and Liam Coen coming in specifically and what we're going to see, Todd Bowles versus Liam Coen. And then there's other parts of me that are like, oh, my God, like we're at the finish line, but also not at the finish line because hopefully the Bucs make a long playoff run and finish line ends up with them, going to the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl is in New Orleans this year, so just real quick, want to share our thoughts and prayers with the victims affected in that tragic, senseless act of violence and terrorism the other day. So thinking about everybody. Notre Dame and Georgia is about to play, so this might be a little mini Pewter Game Day show as well with some reactions to Notre Dame versus Georgia. But also, of course, we're going to talk mostly about the Buccaneers. What was that?
The Bucs have a player on each team, Robert Hainsey from Notre Dame and Tyke Smith from Georgia. So,
yeah, that's right. It's been tough for some of the Bucs players and their alma maters that were in the college football playoff. I mean, specifically the running backs, right? Rashad White, his Arizona State team, they gave a hell of a performance yesterday, almost taking off Texas. And then on the other hand, Bucky Irving and the Oregon Ducks just got absolutely blown out. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Georgia and Notre Dame today. But yeah, a lot of the focus and attention is about not just the Bucs, but there's so many other storylines in this game. And yes, we can talk about the Saints, but the Saints are like so abysmal. I'm not expecting the Bucs just to say, hey, we're going to show up and we're going to win, because there isn't any given Sunday element. But the Saints have scored 10 points in their last two games. They got dismantled by the Packers in Green Bay in prime time 2 weeks ago, where, if the Bucs consider themselves a playoff team and a high caliber playoff team, the way that the Packers were going to the NFC Championship game last year, this is a game that the Bucs should absolutely steamroll the New Orleans Saints. But there's so many subplots in between it. It's winning the division for a fourth straight year, going to the playoffs for a fifth straight year, if it gets done. I'm not guaranteeing that, though I feel pretty good about it. It's Baker Mayfield getting into the MVP conversation. It's Mike Evans extending his record for most consecutive seasons to begin a career with 1,000 yards, and then also tying Jerry Rice for the most consecutive 1,000 yards.
Talk about elite company.
Yeah, with 11. And it's Liam Coen. Is he going to be a head coach next year? Is he having too much fun being the Bucs offensive coordinator that he wants to stay? This is exciting because it's a very winnable game for the Bucs, and there's so many other storylines that it's more than just winning they're in.
Yeah, Matt, I don't know which storyline you want to talk about first when we start previewing the show, because there's so many layers to it, as you mentioned, from Baker Mayfield and the rest of the offense. Mike Evans and his streak that really the whole team wants him to get. And Liam Coen today, he kind of addressed his head coaching future. I remember at this point last year, we were kind of talking about Dave Canales. He started to get those virtual interviews with the Panthers, and then he went and he bolted. I don't think the Bucs can afford Liam Coen to do the same, and for him to bolt. But when you look at this game against the Saints, Matt, man, if the Tampa Bay doesn't come out and just like start firing and just start scoring points like they did in week 17, there really isn't a reason that they shouldn't. Because you look at the Saints defense, I would say their strongest point's probably their pass rush. They have Carl Granderson, Brian Grieves, even Cam Jordan has 4 sacks this year. They're really strong up front with pressure, but their secondary is abysmal. So the guy on the right side there, Mike Evans, he should have no problem getting 85 receiving yards. One would like to think, with Mayfield feeding him the ball. Evans is obviously the number one passing target through the air, but this game really should be one where the Bucs have no problem meeting the 29.7 point per game threshold that they've averaged all season.
No doubt about it. And it's been super helpful that the Bucs have gotten off to these fast starts, scoring a lot early in games, a lot of times on their opening drive. And I think for me, forget the fact that the Bucs are scoring at will and have put up 40 or more in 2 of the last 3 games. And by the way, the team that they're playing, they had scored 51 points against them last time when they met up in New Orleans. For me, and when we talk about the offense, I think we should start with Mike, then go to Baker. We'll go in order of how long they've been with the Bucs. So we'll go Mike, then Baker, and then Liam Coen. But to kind of just finish that point, I think a big difference from last year is not even just how great the offense has been. It's they have eliminated the doubt, or increased the doubt. Eliminated their own doubt and increased the doubt in their opponent that they have no chance of winning this game. I think in the past, and this isn't I'm not disparaging Dave Canales. I think he was very important to the growth of this overall team last season. But you look at, winning 9-0 against the Panthers and clinching the division that way, and a win is a win no matter what. But the Bucs, because they got off to these slow starts last year and the running game was what it was, you kept teams around. You kept bad teams, inferior opponents around, where you still have to slug it out at the very end. And, that comes with a lot of pressure. That comes with, kind of clenching your teeth and biting your nails at the end, hoping that you're going to win this game. Where this season, I think it's been completely different in a lot of these games. And sure, they had a hiccup against the Cowboys. They've had even the good opponents, you wish they could have put them away. But you look at the Raiders game, and they pulled away by the third quarter. You look at the Giants game, it was never close. Even last week against the Panthers, that game was never close. It was an absolute blowout from beginning to end. And we talked all week about a Panthers team that, hey, they're playing better. They just beat the Cardinals. That didn't matter one lick in this game. It did not matter at all. Once the Bucs got it going with their offense, there was no stopping in them. And that's what makes it so beneficial for the man on the screen there, the greatest offensive player of all time, Michael Lynn Evans, is if the offense is going to score, a lot of the times it's going to be because of Mike Evans. So, yes, the Bucs want to win the game first. Mike Evans is a team guy. He wants to go back to the playoffs. But you also don't want to be the group that didn't have Mike Evans get 1,000 yards and to break his streak. So I feel pretty good about this matchup. You mentioned some of the injuries that the Saints have. The Bucs just need to do their thing. They don't need to do anything special. They don't need to manufacture moving the football, and Mike should be okay in this game.
Yeah, and just kind of branching off that point, I want to talk about Brian S.'s comment here. It's something we were talking about in the media room today. So crazy that from 1986 to 1997, Jerry Rice accumulated over 15,000 yards, over 150 touchdowns in a completely different non-passing area. And Mike Evans will finish around, 12,500 yards, 110 touchdowns. And just the fact that if Mike Evans gets 85 yards, the company it will put him in with Jerry Rice. And Jerry Rice, his records are going to stand forever. And just Mike Evans, I don't think he needs another bullet point to become a first ballot Hall of Famer, but 11 straight seasons of 1,000 yards throughout his career. I mean, that is a huge accomplishment. And Baker, he kind of put it in perspective yesterday, talking about like the company that it'll put him in. And just the fact that Mike Evans, it's been hard for wide receivers to make the Hall of Fame with Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, Steve Smith. Right. But Evans, if he gets there this Sunday, I think that's another way that he can kind of leapfrog some of those other wide receivers.
I thought Baker Mayfield really said it best yesterday. He was asked about kind of, bouncing, winning the game, and Mike doing his thing. And he goes, let's put things in perspective. You're talking about tying somebody, Jerry Rice, that has all receiving records across the NFL throughout history. You're talking about somebody that's consistently been somebody in this community that has raised people up, continued to be the face of the franchise and be there for people. So that record is important to us, not just Mike, to us. That last part I ad-libbed. Now back to what Baker said. To get him to that, obviously, winning is the most important part, but those two things go hand in hand. Mike is a huge part of this offense and a huge part of this passing game. And so getting him involved early and often is a lot of the reasons we've had success. Once again, he says those things go hand in hand. There's balance, and the most important thing is winning, but I see it playing out. If we win, Mike is getting the record. We have to focus on winning and getting him the ball, but our guys are playing for each other. Mike won't say anything about it, and that's just who he is. That's why we love him. That's why everybody loves him. That's why he's been so consistent for so long. It's never about just himself. It's been about winning and trying to find ways to win. And just even talking to some of the guys in the locker room today, it feels just as much like an accomplishment for Baker, for the offensive line, for everybody, if Mike gets 1,000 yards. And it just shows how much Mike means to everybody. It shows how important he is to the history of the game of the NFL. I mean, to have a record with just him and Jerry Rice, like that's unheard of in today's game, even with the extra game. And we'll see if there's an 18th game that's coming. It's unheard of. And it was so cool seeing Tristan Wirfs today. We were talking to him, and we'll get to his comments about Baker Mayfield as well. But he was asked about Mike, and he was just giddy. He was giddy. He was like, he has to have it. He has to have it. And then Mike walked in the locker room. He's like, there he is. There he is, Mike Evans. And I think another aspect of this, too, is the culmination, the emergence, if you will, of how the Bucs have used Mike this season. It's been quite different. And Liam Coen talked about that today. Like, he's not just an outside guy anymore. And I think that's helped him with really this, ever since he came back from his injury, he's been on a great run. And sure, they played against some lesser teams and whatever. But moving Mike around has been a lot of the ingredients to his success this year.
Yeah, I definitely agreed. And the way his play has kind of evolved as the season's gone on, it's comparable to like the NBA when a player gets older and they're not like Duncan and they're as athletic. So they become more of a post player, if you will. And Mike Evans, the way that he's evolved, earlier in the year, he was running vertical routes. And Liam Coen is kind of mentioning today that it's hard to have a success rate, like just running straight go routes. And so the way that Evans has kind of gone more in the slot, been a factor across the middle of the field. Obviously, I think the loss of Chris Godwin kind of has impacted and increased his usage. But just Evans being able to do that, I think speaks to his talent, because not many guys in their early 30s are really putting up numbers that Evans is, but the way that he's doing it and the way that he's still affecting the game week in and week out. I mean, you saw it last week. He had those 2 touchdown catches, like he's finding the end zone. He's racking up the yards, the receptions. I mean, just all around. I think when you consider the factors of like the season and his age, this has to be one of his better years.
Yeah, and the only reason why eventually when you look at his stats from season to season, it's not going to rank up there with statistically one of his best receiving yards type of years, but that's only because of the injury. I mean, he's at over double-digit touchdowns, so he's still getting the job done one way or another. And Callie Bucs, a Pewter Report YouTube channel member, says Evans will break into the top 10 receiving when it's all said and done. Yeah, it's just been funny to see. Like last game, Mike would make one catch, and it's like, that catch has put him past like this guy, and this guy on the all-time receptions list. And then, he'd get a 20-yard gain, and it's like, he has now surpassed X player, X, Y, and Z, and he's this number on the all-time receiving yards list. So every single time he touches the football, greatness happens, and it's very cool to see. Buck says, feed Mike. And Nathan Elliott says, if Evans keeps it going and beats the 14-time 1,000-yard season, that would be epic. Yeah, that'd be pretty wild. And Farouk Kawab says, Mike also deserves the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. I would love for Mike to win it. He's the Bucs representative this year. He's in second place. The problem is he's trailing Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce has the Swifties behind him. So it's going to be very difficult for Mike to – and I like the Swifties, don't get me wrong. But that's a huge fan base that is separately voting for Travis, where I feel like in most years that wouldn't be the case. I hope he wins it. It's going to be tough. Want to get to some super chats as well, and then we'll talk about Baker Mayfield. But sticking with the Bucs offense, we have a $1.99 super chat from Virgin Boys. Thank you very much. Says, is Culp going to start if Otten and Durham can't go? Well, today, Cade Otten and Payne Durham were both out there. We'll see to what degree they actually participated. Durham was certainly running around and stuff, and it seemed like it was more of a maintenance than anything else. Otten has obviously missed the last 2 games, but it is a next man up mentality with this group. If for some reason Payne Durham can't go and Otten is out again, it would be Devin Culp and Coke Keeft in the mix. They'd be pretty thin at tight end. I know they have Tanner Towla and some practice squad guys. But hey, Devin Culp, for the most playing time his career, looked pretty good.
Yeah, he did. And I think if Devin Culp had to start on Sunday, you'd be fairly confident just based on the fact that his last game he had 3 catches for 52 yards. He looked really good, just getting into his drops as a tight end on his routes and being a factor across the middle of the field. So even without Cade Otten and Payne Durham, if that was the case, I think you would still be confident in Devin Culp. And then obviously Coke Keeft, he does offer a blocking dynamic there. Tanner Towle would probably be the next man up if that were the case, from the practice squad to the active roster. But I think with Payne Durham, the fact that we didn't really know about his injury until after makes it kind of seem like it wasn't as bad of an injury as Cade Otten's. And I'm unsure if Cade Otten will play, but with Payne Durham and Devin Culp, if those 2 young tight ends are out there, I think Baker Mayfield in the offense will be just fine.
I think so. And that's another credit to Baker and Liam Coen specifically. We're seeing it right now with the tight ends and not having Cade Otten, but getting huge contributions from Payne and Devin in that last game. But also, let's remember how good the offense still looked when they didn't have Mike and Chris. And maybe they weren't winning those games, but it sure as hell wasn't because of what the offense was doing. So again, Liam Coen just deserves a lot of credit for finding ways to get the job done, even without having the best personnel around him. I mean, even this week, not having Sterling Shepard, who did practice today, he's just able to find different ways to get things to work. And just an update on this Georgia-Notre Dame game. Georgia got 1 first down on a pass interference penalty. Then Notre Dame stopped them. Georgia goes to punt. They run into the punter. It's a penalty, but because they were so far back, they just moved closer and got to punt it again. They just ran into the Georgia punter again. So it's absolutely wild. 2 straight running into the kickers. Anyway, there's your update in the Georgia-Notre Dame game.
I like this comment here, talking about Liam Coen. He could scheme open a rock. I love it.
That is that's a great one. I like that. And Redfish, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Says, if we win, how does it look for Winfield in the playoffs? Even in the second half, Panthers had some wide receivers open. Rooting for the Seahawks, so we play Washington/Green Bay. So the good news is Antoine Winfield Jr. warmed up with the other Bucs players today. So typically when media gets to go out to practice itself, all the players are lined up doing calisthenics, going up and down the field before they break off into, individual groupings. It's a lot of special teams at the time as well. Some players will come out later as well if they're getting extra treatment. For example, Baker and Tristan Wirfs both came out on their own separately. It's just how it goes. And Antoine recently has either not been out there at all or running individually on a separate field. That was not the case today. Now, he didn't have his shoulder pads and things on, but he was running, training with the team, which was super cool to see. So how much will he participate? I mean, we probably will get the injury report by the time this episode ends. Hopefully we do. It's tough because it's the Saints, where you should be able to win even without Antoine Winfield Jr. and you want him there for
you'd hope
just the playoff game itself, but also, you have to do everything you can to win the game. Now, the second part of this, I think the Bucs, and I don't want to go too far ahead into playoff matchups and things like that nature, because they have to win no matter what. And if they don't win, then all of this is for nothing. I do think the best scenario for the Bucs is they obviously win, they get the 3 seed, and they end up playing Washington in that first round, because then you kind of set yourself up, like if you do win, then you're playing the Eagles in round 2 instead of either the winner of Detroit and Minnesota. And the Eagles have an injury to their quarterback, Jalen Hurts. And who knows what his availability will be, come the second round of the playoffs. So, again, don't want to get too far ahead, but that could be a pretty good matchup for the Bucs.
Yeah, it could be. Just to comment on Rev Fish's comment, I think Winfield, I would probably rest him this week against the Saints wide receivers. I mean, if Chris Olave's out, Matt, their top wide receiver is Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who, watching the Packers, he's a deep threat, but he's not consistent in catching the football. So if there's another game to sit Winfield out, it'd probably be this one. And just the fact that the healthier he's going to be either for the playoffs or for next season, the better. And heading into the playoffs, having a fully healthy Antoine Winfield Jr. that's well rested and ready to go, I think would be huge. And just kind of looking at the playoff matchups, it'll be interesting because Washington, I mean, Todd Bowles, he did well scheming up a way to stop Jayden Daniels the first time around in his first NFL game. But how about again in the playoffs with Daniels really being electric all season?
He has in Daniels, but he's been really good. Don't get me wrong. And he probably will win Rookie of the Year. I just also kind of think, they barely got out of there with a win with the Falcons. Let's remember that game went into overtime. And as good as Jayden Daniels is, he also will make a good amount of mistakes, like throwing an interception in the red zone, some bad throws and things of that nature. So even for a Bucs team that just cannot take the ball away, especially via the interception, I feel like that's a good opportunity to get a couple of interceptions, couple of splash plays for the defense, where that's kind of all you need from the Bucs defense is a couple of nice plays, and you can find a way to win because the Bucs offense is so good. One more super chat to get to. Eric Marino, thank you very much for this $2 super chat. Who says, shout out to Matt and Adam. You guys are awesome. Thank you, Eric. That's very nice of you. You are great.
Right back at you.
Well, and yeah, exactly. So thank you all very much for your support. And also thank you for the support from our friends over at Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. We love Celsius for a number of reasons, including all of their fantastic flavors that are so delicious and tasty. I love the Arctic Vibe. Fancy Vibe is really good as well. You see on the screen there the sparkling watermelon lemonade. So there's all wonderful flavors that you can go and check out. If you haven't had a Celsius before, I don't know what you're waiting for. I'm just kidding. But if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in their address, and it'll tell you the closest location where you can pick one up. Could be a Walmart, a Target, a Publix, a Stop and Shop, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And after you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want more, you can buy it in bulk over on Amazon with the subscribe and save. I'd recommend the variety pack because there's so many fantastic flavors of Celsius. And you can get sent to your place of residence whenever you want. It's up to you. Just do it at your own leisure. And make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com.
If you hear my cat meowing, I apologize, but he's right next to me hanging out.
One time, but we are a pet-friendly show, so
at some point he'll make a cameo.
Yeah. Okay, the injury report just came out, so since we were on that topic, let's get to it. The injury report is as follows. Devin Culp, ribs, fully participated. Jamel Dean, don't make a scene. Knee, did not participate. Payne Durham, quad, limited. Mike Evans, rest, did not participate. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
Will Golston, knee, limited. He's been that all season long. Bucky Irving, shoulder and shin, limited. Cade Otton, knee, limited. So that's a good sign. Cade Otton with the limited tag today.
Yeah.
Sterling Shepard, hamstring, limited. Another upgrade, Antoine Winfield Jr., knee, limited in practice today. And Tristan Wirfs was limited as well with that foot and knee injury. Going over to the Saints, Derek Carr, left hand, did not practice, did not participate. Willie Gay Jr., shoulder, limited. Jawan Johnson, knee, limited. And Alvin Kamara, groin, did not practice. Kendre Miller, concussion, did not practice. Chris Olave, who is in the practice window to return from injured reserve with a head injury, fully participated. Peyton Turner, ankle, did not participate. MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who you mentioned before, chest, fully participated today. And Pete Werner, concussion, was limited in practice. So, yeah, Olave will be interesting to see if they call him up for the last game of the season, want to give him an opportunity to play. But for the Bucs, the big news, Cade Otton returning, Payne Durham returning, and Antoine Winfield Jr. The Bucs haven't been healthy all season, but, man, if they can get at least Winfield back for hopefully the postseason, that would be bigger than big for the Bucs.
Yeah, and well, while you went over the Bucs injury report, I think the more telling thing is the Saints injury report and the fact that Derek Carr doesn't look like he's going to play. The Saints' top two running backs they haven't participated all this week. That leaves them with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jamal Williams, two guys that aren't the most fleet of foot, and then Spencer Rattler, who has not been good this season. Only 3 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. What I'm most curious about is Chris Olave, though. And while Chris Olave, he's a really good wide receiver from that Ohio State pipeline. The past 3 games he's played Tampa Bay, he hasn't done too much. If you go back to week 4 of 2023, he had 1 catch for 4 yards. Week 17 last year, he had 3 catches for 26 yards. And earlier in the season, while he did leave the game in the first quarter, he only had 1 catch for 5 yards. So they haven't really schemed up ways to get him involved when he plays the Bucs. So that's something to consider. And the Saints offense is just depleted all over the place, because even their offensive line, they're missing 5 guys, and they've only averaged 5 points a game the past 2 weeks. I mean, if the Bucs defense doesn't go out and respond, like, this is the game to do it. This is like Giants-esque.
It really is. That's a great comparison, because, I mean, it's so funny that Spencer Rattler is their best option based on they gave an opportunity to who was it? Jake Haener?
Yeah.
What's his name? Yeah. The other quarterback. Yeah, Jake Haener. And he did not look NFL ready at all, to the point where they had to go, oh my God, like, we have to go back to Spencer Rattler because this guy cannot function as a quarterback. And then they had the game against the Packers, like we mentioned. They didn't look good at all last week either. They're just a really bad football team right now. They have dealt with injuries. There's no doubt about it. They've dealt with a number of injuries. But part of all those injuries are that they're an older team. And that's just going to happen when you have older players. Like, the Bucs are one of the youngest teams in the league. So the injuries that they've had are more of unfortunate, unlucky type of stuff, like unforeseeable things, where the Saints, it was a little bit more predictable. Like for Alvin Kamara, outside of like career statistics, career numbers, like what's his incentive of like playing on Sunday? And I'm not saying like you are an NFL player, you are getting an NFL paycheck and stuff like that. But if Kamara knows that he's going to play next season, I don't know like what the incentive is for him outside of like, does Alvin Kamara care about being a spoiler to the Bucs? I don't necessarily think so. Cameron Jordan certainly does, but not everyone thinks the way that he does. So MVS, the Bucs have had a little bit of trouble with like miscommunication and deep balls and stuff like that. I would worry about that, but we saw the Bucs go up against Spencer Rattler, and he had one good drive and then was able to shut him down. If they can get that, I mean, the push from Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey obviously is big, but the emergence of the outside linebacker position, specifically with Chris Braswell getting a strip sack, and I don't know, maybe Shaq Barrett just pumping up the energy for that group. Any little semblance of a pass rush, and I think it's kind of curtains for the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, if the Bucs come out and they have a pass rush, I think the Saints offensive line is just going to fold because they don't have the guys to really protect Spencer Rattler. And you look at the last game for the Bucs pass rush, I don't know if it was the addition of Shaq Barrett even to the team, but they really came alive. And you saw Braswell get his first full NFL sack, and he kind of looked more like that physical player he was at Alabama. I'm sure the team's hoping that he has more of the same this week as he kind of looks to catapult into next season. But even Logan Hall, he has 5.5 sacks, which, hey, it's more than Cam Jordan. So he has some bragging rights there. But switching the topic and kind of looking at the Saints defense, Matt, how do you see things looking over there? Because you mentioned like the older talent that New Orleans has, and plenty of guys like Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, they're not getting it done like they used to.
No, they're not. And this is the conversation that we've had about the Saints for several years now is, when is the other shoe going to drop? When is it going to be that age has caught up to this team and they're not going to be able to be the thorn in the side of the Bucs that they really have been for a lot of the past couple of years when they've gone up against each other? Like even last season, the Saints beat the Bucs in Tampa. Like that can't be overlooked, even though they've been so bad this season. So, like, we'll see if Werner is able to play, but they don't really have much of a pass rush. Carl Granderson is respectable. I like Colin Saunders as well. He had that touchdown against the Chiefs. I remember covering him at the Senior Bowl, and he was fun to watch. But, you know, so many injuries there. Like, Alontae Taylor, I really like. He's a guy that I would maybe worry about a little bit when it comes to making
if somebody makes a play, like it'd probably be him.
Because what's been the issue with the Bucs? It hasn't been defenses stopping them on offense. It's been turnovers. It's been fumbles and things of that nature. It hasn't been, oh, hey, the pass rush has gotten to Baker. He has no time to throw. Like, yes, Baker gets sacked from time to time, but it's not like, oh, here comes the pass rush again type of situation. It's very few and far between. So, you know, who's going to get it done against the Bucs? I don't necessarily see anyone. Like inside linebacker Demario Davis, I'm a huge fan of, but he's taken a step back. He's a good blitzer, but I don't know how worried I necessarily am about him than in other seasons. I truly just think it's a situation of take care of your own business, don't turn the ball over, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, like when you look at the Saints offense, the Saints defense, there's not really that game record there. And Demario Davis defensively, he's not really that anymore. The Saints offensively don't really have anybody that moves the needle. And I think that's a big thing. Like you said, the Bucs really just have to go out and play their style of football, much like they did against the Panthers on Sunday. And the Panthers were a better team that was kind of trending upward. And the Bucs just completely dominated on both fronts. So I think if you have the offensive line, they've played well all season. On pewterreport.com did a story today on how they deserve more credit. And I think if they go out there, Bucky Irving, you know, he does what he does. He likes to say that. I think they can really just control the time of possession. And then with that, you control the game. Because as long as Baker Mayfield, I think what really got the Bucs into trouble back in week 6 was him throwing 3 interceptions. If he looks more like he did throwing 5 touchdowns and no interceptions, I think they're in a lot better place. And I think this is a game that Saints fans, back in the day, they used to put bags over their head. They might be doing that again.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be a true diehard if you're going to make the trip for any team, like if their last game is a road game and you're not going to the postseason, to go and do that, I mean, hey, credit to the passion. But to the point you were making, Shaggy, a Pewter Report YouTube channel member, says overall the O-line has been impressive this season. There's no doubt about it, and that's why we saw one player from the Bucs offensive line make the Pro Bowl for the Bucs, and the other player was in the trenches as well. Tristan Wirfs and Vita Vea are the representatives of the Bucs going to the Pro Bowl. They have a couple of alternates as well, including Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans. So congratulations to them for making the Pro Bowl. This is the 4th year in a row that Tristan has made it. And Vita has been there before, so a little familiarity with the Pro Bowl for sure. But we were just talking about the Bucs Saints matchup. It's probably a good time to remind everybody that we'll have the Pewter pregame show where we look into more of the individual matchups of Bucs versus Saints. That'll be on Sunday, January 5th. That starts at 9 o'clock a.m. So we start early if you want to join us, but it'll be on our YouTube channel, so you could check it out as well a little bit later if you're not able to join us at 9 o'clock. And then after that, we'll have the Pewter Game Day show. That will start at 1 o'clock p.m. Myself and Josh Capo going bonkers, going balls to the wall on every single play that takes place in the game. And hopefully by the end of it, we will be talking about a Buccaneers division championship. So make sure you check us out. It'll be right on our YouTube channel at Pewter Report TV. And for those Pewter Report YouTube channel members that are Premier and Platinum members, we have another show coming up tomorrow at 1:30. It'll be myself and Scott. And it's titled Another Big Game for Baker Mayfield on Tap? ? But of course, we're there to answer your questions and comments. That's the main point of the show. So for you Pewter Platinum and Premier members, please join us tomorrow at 1:30. And since we're talking about the Platinum and Premier members, let's give a quick shout out to our Pewter Platinum members: Scott Federico, Rathel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Eric McMillan, and Zach Jarvis. Thank you all very much for your support of PewterReport.com. Verkov says, you mean to tell me KJ Britt got snubbed from the Pro Bowl? Damn. Bringing the
Catching strays out here.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about one or two other things with the Bucs offense. Then we'll kind of wrap it up with Shaq Barrett and talk about what he had to say today when he spoke to the media. But Liam Coen, we can kind of go hand in hand with Liam and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Liam Coen and Baker have a good relationship, but they do not care about personal accolades. Like Liam Coen said today, he's having so much fun being offensive coordinator and living in Tampa that he hasn't even really thought about being a head coach. He has goals of being a head coach. It's definitely something he wants to do. But the way he said it today of like, I don't mind holding off for a bit, I think that's a good sign for Bucs fans. I love what he said about it. He's like, yeah, I was texting Baker. Like, neither of us knew how many touchdowns that he had. And how Baker thought it was cool that he won NFC Offensive Player of the Week, but, you know, he'd rather have the wins. Kind of sounds like Liam Coen. Maybe there's a chance that, and depending on how the season ends, that he'd be willing to stay as offensive coordinator of the Bucs, which is a gigantic win for the Bucs, if that's the case.
Yeah, and when you look at it, like Baker Mayfield, Liam Coen, they don't care about stats, and they don't care about getting each other Christmas presents either. I thought that was a funny part of the press conference. And really, they're just all about ball. They're all about football. And when you look at Liam Coen, it kind of sounds like he's having the time of his life in Tampa Bay. And I kind of see it being a situation along the lines of Ben Johnson, the way that Coen kind of addressed the head coaching rumors, and that he will wait maybe for the ideal situation. And the ideal situation kind of sounds like it's with the Bucs, because Coen, he obviously he enjoys Baker Mayfield. That's why he came down to Tampa Bay, and he's enjoyed being in this offense. And why leave such a successful situation where you have a top 5 offense? You know what you have in these players just for a head coaching gig, because he's 39 years old. And like Ben Johnson's 38, he turned down the Commander's job, and he's just like, hey, I'm under Dan Campbell. I'm maybe going to go out there and win a ring in Detroit. I mean, the Bucs window is really just opening. And so I think for Liam Coen, he can really pick and choose where he can go. He doesn't have to go to a downtrodden team like the Jaguars, picking like at the top of the draft. He can kind of go maybe a team that's up and coming. But also, the Bucs are up and coming. And Todd Bowles, he isn't going to be coaching in Tampa Bay forever. If Todd Bowles is maybe out in a year or two, you can kind of see Coen as like, hey, I'm going to stick around and wait for it. And then he's going to be the coach long term.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he has Baker there, we've seen, as we talked about earlier, that he can kind of work with anyone. So, like, yeah, eventually Mike will retire. You know, Chris Godwin's getting up there in age, NFL age-wise, like a little bit. But there's still a lot to work with this Bucs team. And that's why I look at it with 2 extra points as well, with one of them being, yeah, I'm sure he'd like to win a Super Bowl with this offense due to his relationships with Baker and Mike and other guys on this team. But I also think it's important for when you want to become a head coach, or when you do become a head coach, like everyone just kind of thinks, oh, well, they're a good play caller and they're good with X's and O's, therefore they're going to be a good coach. And that's not always the case. Like, you can be a great play caller, but not be a great head coach. And I think some of the best head coaches in the leagues are the ones that are great leaders, that know how to captivate. Like, we've seen, you know, Mike McDaniels is super fun, and he's got a lot of great offensive plays and schemes and systems. But what do we also say about the Dolphins? They can't be good teams, and they can't play in cold weather. Yeah. So I'm not saying like Mike McDaniels isn't, you know, like a tough
bad head coach, but maybe he doesn't have the most polish.
He doesn't. Yeah, there's not like all of the inspiration. So Liam Coen, to me, I find him so interesting because he's clearly a great play caller. We're all seeing it this season. But then he also, I don't put him in that same category of just being like a nerdy offensive play caller guy. Like, he has a good personality. He was open and loose today. And again, you don't have to just be funny to be a good head coach, but he's got a self-confidence and a good leadership quality that I don't think some of the other guys have. So I just think it makes it a very interesting scenario for him, where maybe he needs a couple of more reps as maybe not the play calling side of things, but the like the leadership, the motivating aspect of it, where, you know, it's not always going to be great. It's not always going to be spectacular. How do you still motivate the guys after? I think that's the question that Liam Coen has to answer next. And it's a lot easier to answer that with this Bucs team than it is even going to like his home team of New England. Who still have a lot to clean up.
Yeah, they do. And even though he grew up in that area and he went to college there, I mean, that's a team that lacks a lot of talent. And so I think his best bet, if you're in his shoes, I mean, you have a situation here in Tampa Bay where you're building something. And should they not win the Super Bowl, I mean, there's unfinished business too in that aspect of it. But when you kind of look at Liam Coen, you mentioned like he thinks he's ready to be an NFL head coach, but you're never really fully ready until you get in those shoes. And that's something that Dave Canales, he talked about with the Panthers and just kind of being overwhelmed. I mean, it's a lot to step into the shoes of an NFL head coach, because you're not only game planning the offense. Dave Canales in Carolina, he also has to be the mentor for Bryce Young, manage all 53 players on a team. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility. So if Coen could also just kind of continue learning from Todd Bowles, somebody who's been doing it for a while, I think that might be to his benefit. And just when that time comes, you're ready, and there won't be as much of a learning curve there.
I agree. Another person that agrees is he's an 813 who says 100% Matty Diamonds. Mike Martz comes to mind. Outstanding offensive coordinator, mediocre at best with head coach. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's tough, is you don't totally know until they're doing the job. So there's not like a truly a proper answer. But let's talk about Baker Mayfield, because he's been in the conversation a lot. Just came off of throwing for 5 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield has a chance to, you know, make some history this year. So Baker currently is what is he at? 39 touchdown passes?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's at 39 touchdown passes. If he throws one more, he will tie Tom Brady for second most in Bucs history for single season touchdown passes. Now remember, this is a man that just threw 5 touchdowns last game. Tom Brady has the record. So Tom Brady's in first and second place right now with the Bucs single season touchdown passing record. Brady has the record of 43. Baker could surpass that with another monster game.
Yeah.
So Baker is quickly rising up the ranks in all-time Bucs history. But on top of that, it's not just what's going on with him and the Bucs. He's also hovering around the MVP conversation. Now, I don't think he's going to win it based on some of the other candidates with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, Saquon. There's been that discussion. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase for what they're doing, despite the Bengals not being a great team. They still have a shot to make the playoffs. And CBS wanted to get Sam Darnold in there. Darnold was one of the Pro Bowl quarterbacks this year. But Baker's stats aren't that far off, Adam. They're like right up there with the rest of those guys. So if you were doing a ranking, like where do you put Baker in that MVP conversation?
That's a great question. And I think I would probably put it Lamar number 1. I mean, he's been otherworldly in terms of efficiency. And then there's always a ground element there. Josh Allen number 2 for what he's accomplished this year, some of the big plays he's had, and really raising the status of the Bills. I would put him number 2. But Baker Mayfield, I'd probably slot in there at number 3. And like a lot of credit goes to like Saquon Barkley. Joe Burrow's been fantastic this year. And I think if the Bengals make the playoffs, he probably has a stronger case than Mayfield. But Baker Mayfield, the Bucs would not be where they are without him. And you add in his 3 rushing touchdowns, that puts him at 42 total touchdowns this year, which isn't too far off Lamar, not too far off Josh Allen. And just what he's had to do and who he's worked with, I think is another element. Like after losing Chris Godwin and really just having Mike Evans, he's still been able to put up the numbers with him and like a cast of practice squad wide receivers like Ryan Miller. I mean, Jalen McMillan's come along, but he wasn't there in the first half. So that's how I would slot it. What about you?
Yeah, so the point that people are forgetting, but you just brought it up, is, everyone's praising Josh Allen for not having Stephon Diggs this year and losing a lot of guys on the defense. And I get that, but people are forgetting that Baker, had his stretch of not having Mike and Chris and not having a number of his top targets and still getting the job done and doing it in the grittiest ways possible.
Yeah.
Scrambling, extending plays, all of that good stuff. So I think Baker deserves a lot of credit for that. It gets dicey with like Burrow and Lamar and Jamar Chase because the Bengals defense is horrible. And like that's the only reason why the Bengals aren't in a playoff spot right now. Like Jamar Chase is going to win the Triple Crown. And he didn't even begin the season playing because there was like the whole contract dispute. Then you look at Sam Darnold, who's in a very similar boat to what Baker had going on in his career. Like Sam Darnold was an afterthought, goes to the Vikings and has a chance to be the number 1 seed if they win on Sunday. Jared Goff, like where does he fit into the mix? So
yeah, that's true.
I don't think I would put Baker at 3. At worst, Baker is 7th. But I'm going to put Baker at 5. I don't necessarily know who I'd put.
Maybe Saquon.
Yeah, so I would have Josh Allen first and Lamar second.
Okay.
I would almost have Saquon third. Like he got over 2,000 rushing yards. Like he's having a great season. I think I would go Jamar Chase 4, Baker 5, Burrow 6, Darnold 7. And then Jared Goff 8. I remember seeing a tweet that was very funny. It was like, it was a picture of Baker and Sam Darnold on the Panthers, and it's like all you need to do to survive your career is just throw the ball to Mike Evans and Justin Jefferson. It's like, yeah, that's actually a great point. But the reason why I brought this up as well is because Tristan Wirfs spoke about.
And he doesn't speak about it much, on social media.
He never tweets. So he retweets a lot of stuff that you'll see on social media. But the last time he actually like typed something out on his own account and tweeted it, was April 7th of 2024, and was to congratulate a great season had by Caitlin Clark and the Iowa women's college basketball team. That's the last time he tweeted something that wasn't just a retweet, but he had a post. It was a tweet by CBS with like some MVP candidates, and he quote tweeted and put Baker stats and everything like that. So I asked him like, what was like what moved him to go out and tweet that, because he doesn't tweet that much. And of course he started out with Baker's a dog. He's a dog. He's my guy. Which I love every time.
I can hear him saying that. Like,
yeah,
said exactly. It so much.
Tristan went on to say, he's like, Baker's numbers are this, like, he's up there with all those guys. So like, why isn't Baker getting the consideration? So he just wanted to give him some love. And then he joked as well, as Georgia just hit a big deep shot down the field. Then he joked as well. He was talking about, he's like, Baker doesn't even use the social media. He didn't even see like what I said to him. But it was cool seeing Tristan have his back. I hope he gets Baker in the MVP conversation a little bit more. He's not going to win it this year, but he could set himself up for a damn good 2025 season and a chance to win the MVP that year.
Yeah, that's a fair point, because he's kind of put himself on the map and getting more national attention this year. And you wonder if he like continues to do what he's doing this year, maybe even a little bit better next year, and like limiting the turnovers. He really could vault into like the real conversation, because right now he's probably on the outskirts. The betting odds have him at like plus 30,000. Like, he's not going to win it this year, but he can really help himself in 2025.
Speaking of getting real, it's very real and important to have top level insurance, and there's nobody better to work with than Brier Grieves Insurance. If you're a longtime podcast listener of the Pewter Report podcast, you probably remember the late great Mark Cook. And by the way, congratulations to Zion McCollum, who won the Mark Cook Good Guy Award for the player that is most easygoing, most talkative with the Bucs media. So congrats to Zion for winning that award. That was named after Mark, who we miss dearly. But Mark used to talk about Brier Grieves Insurance all the time. And Pewter Report's Scott Reynolds has been a Brier Grieves customer for years, and there simply isn't a better insurance company in the Tampa Bay area. Visit BrierGrievesInsurance.com to see for yourself. Brier Grieves Insurance is family-owned, and their main goal is helping people. And they are helping people find the right insurance policy for you and your family. Whether it's home or auto, boating insurance, or business insurance, turn to Brier Grieves and find out why their personal touch and customer service sets them apart. The days of waiting on to hold to speak with an insurance representative that you don't even know are over. With Brier Grieves Insurance, you'll have relationships with your agent who can answer your questions and advise you on the best policies. As two recent hurricanes have shown all of us that live in the Tampa Bay area, there is a cost to living in paradise. Brier Grieves can help make sure you have the right hurricane and flood insurance to make sure you and your home are protected. So visit BrierGrievesInsurance.com today. That's Brier, B-R-I-E-R, Grieves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, or call their office today at 813-876-4166. One more time, that's 813-876-4166. Tell them that Pewter Report sent you. So thanks to our friends over at Brier Grieves. And as we wrap up the show, let's talk about our main man, Shaq Barrett, who is back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He signed last week, was a game day inactive for this team, but it was the first time we got to really speak to Shaq, and get his thoughts on coming back to the team, what made him want to come back, what was the history and the timeline behind knowing that he was returning to the Buccaneers. So there was a lot of good stuff from him for sure. He knew for a couple of weeks now. It was interesting. So Shaq said that there were 3 teams that were interested in him, all playoff teams. It was the Eagles, the Lions, and the Bucs. And he said if no teams were interested, he would have stopped playing. Like, he was already retired anyway. And, there was some interesting lines to cross with, like, his rights were still owned by the Dolphins, basically, that he was under contract. So he had to wait for that. But he had a couple of options. Detroit, it makes a ton of sense with, the injury to Aiden Hutchinson and all that stuff.
The fact that they have other Bucs on the roster, Pat O'Connor and Carlton Davis.
Yeah, Carlton is injured, but yeah, for sure. Yeah. So he did have some options, but as he said months ago, the Bucs were the only team he wanted to play for. So he was in communication with Jason Light. He also said he can't play a whole game right now. He's just not in NFL shape at the moment. So he's here to provide. He said he'll provide whatever whatever the team wants from him. So it very much looks like it's going to be a, third down pass rushing situation. But it's important to note as well, because we don't know how much longer the Bucs are going to be playing for. Shaq is going to train his ass off this offseason, and he wants to play in 2025. So this will be very interesting, Adam, because Shaq last year, remember, he was coming off an Achilles injury. That's not the easiest injury to come back from, as we're seeing with Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins, and that's not working out. But he's had a whole year to really be off of it. Not playing this season. I mean,
yeah.
Okay, he did mini camp with the Dolphins. But now he's going to train. We'll see how much game experience he gets this year. I'm curious as to what a revived Shaq Barrett could look like if he could find his old self a little bit. And the other reason why he retired, he said it wasn't in his heart really with the Dolphins. But he said that he has reignited that spark. He loves the Tampa area. He loves what the Bucs mean to him, and what he means to the Bucs, obviously, with his family in that situation, that tragic situation. But he cares for the Bucs a lot. Obviously, Tampa Bay loves him. He talked about improving his legacy in his history with the Buccaneers. Also interesting, he'll be wearing number 56. That's the third number that he'll be wearing with the Bucs. So a lot of good positivity with Shaq. He was in great spirits. He's excited to be back. He's still in a group chat with a lot of the outside linebackers. He said he was watching the Bucs all season long. So it was just fun to see Shaq back in the locker room in very good spirits. And who knows? We'll see what type of impact he can make. I wonder if he'll play this week. I think maybe they will dress him just to be like, hey, let's see what you got. You're playing the Saints.
Especially if it becomes a shutout. Yeah. But
right. So what type of impact do you think Shaq can have?
Yeah, I think when you kind of look at Shaq Barrett, last year, he wasn't bad. He had more of a Yaya Diaby-esque year this year, and that he's graded out really well. He graded out really well in terms of creating pressure, and I think he ranked as the 15th best edge rusher in that category by PFF. So I think there is still something left in the tank with Shaq Barrett. And if he can even get back to where he was last year, he's probably an upgrade over guys like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Anthony Nelson, but at the same time, he also has to ramp up to game speed. So I think you said it best. This Sunday, probably a third down, rotational rusher, maybe get 10 snaps, and it'd be huge for him. Could you imagine if he came back week 18, got a sack, how fired up the Ray J crowd would be? Maybe not as fired up as they were when they saw the Duck on the field, but just Shaq. Such a great story with Shaq. The guys love him. He always has a smile on his face, even after when he went through last offseason with the injury, with what happened in his personal life. He still just radiates joy. And
he does.
I'd be really curious to see how his career ends up playing out, because let's say he re-signs in Tampa Bay for another year, and he becomes more of a rotational guy, maybe gets 5 or 6 sacks for a couple of years. Would that strengthen his case for the Ring of Honor? Just what he was able to do, based on everything that he's gone through?
No doubt. I think it absolutely would. Now, there's still Simeon Rice that needs to be taken care of and all that stuff. But Shaq could have a case because he does have a part of history with the Bucs. But, we could talk about that another day. Another good thing for Shaq coming back, something he can benefit from, is seeing all the walk-ons in the Tampa Bay area.
What an amazing comeback, Coach.
You're not kidding. I mean, we did lose the game badly. But coming to walk-ons afterward, the team got a much-needed win off the field.
Walk-ons for the win.
That's right. Walk-ons has great deals, including happy hour every single business day of the week. Some awesome price deals like $3 happy hour pours and $4 house wines. check out all of the appetizers they have, like the fried pickles and the boneless wings. Can't go wrong with any of them. They are delicious. And then on the weekends, still plenty of sports to watch. College football, still some bowls left to be played, and obviously the college football playoff. NFL on Sunday, some NFL games on Saturday this week as well. And then, of course, the NFL playoffs coming up. No better spot to watch than walk-ons. They have tons and tons of TVs. They have some deals like pints of $4.49 or 22-ounce drinks for $5.99 of Mick Ultra, Bud Light, and Budweiser. You can also get $5 Heineken Silver and $5 Neutrals as well. There are 3 walk-ons in the Tampa Bay area, 1 in Lakeland, 1 over in Wesley Chapel, and another in Midtown Tampa, pretty close to Raymond James Stadium. So check out walk-ons and have all of their delicious food and drinks. And just one more reminder, Pewter Insider tomorrow for Pewter Platinum and Premier members. That'll be at 1:30. And then the Pewter pregame show Sunday at 9 a.m., Pewter game day show at 1 o'clock p.m. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. If you're not already doing so, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment on this video as well. So that's it for our first episode of the new year. For Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. Happy New Year, and we'll see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.
Out. Happy New Year.